Enjoy responsibly.
Can you imagine being on international television and saying the league had figured out Patrick Mahomes? Woody Page! Oh, I love you, Woody, but it's not happening for you. Not today. No show for Woody. We can find somebody, right?
Now,
also.
Get out of here.
Well, that's just coincidence. The champs go down, and let's go. Honestly, I mean, somebody just sits around.
What do we got?
Woody, no, you're not. No, Woody.
Around
Woody,
the horn has
it's
figured
fine
out
for
what
you
he's
to
saying.
say it, and I'm just saying I'm now penalizing it because it's not going to happen. Yeah. It's not going to happen for us.
The second straight week that Brady's had multiple interceptions. Can you just speak to what was going on maybe with the receivers?
No, I had nothing to do with receivers. It was him. The stupidity. That has to go away.
So those two interceptions firmly put on Brady, and how
doesn't matter who you play if we, have a bunch of self-inflicted errors too. I mean, we gotta eliminate those and then see if we can go out and execute the plays that are there.
Champs fall to 6-3 after the loss to Washington. George Sedano, look at you! You were right there. How does that happen?
Hey,
is it really that bad for the defending
coincidence.
champs? What's the major malfunction with Tampa?
Tony, I do think it's bad. It's very serious. If you look at the top of that NFC, those top 5 teams are all Super Bowl contenders, and the Bucs find themselves in the 5th spot right now, which is not where you want to be because there's not a lot of home field advantage in those particular situations. But when I look at this individual game and just kind of the season as a whole, there are a couple of things that stick out. When I saw Taylor Heineke throw that 20-yard pass for a touchdown, it was against the blitz. And if you look at the Bucs this season, they've given up 12 touchdowns against the blitz. That's the most in the NFL. So that's something Todd Bowles certainly needs to look at. Now, with Tom Brady, maybe there's something that the Washington football team did that could be a blueprint for others. Brady only saw 21% man coverage in that game. That's the lowest since 2016 when the Next Gen Stats started to look at that stuff. And here's the thing. In man versus zone coverage, Brady's QBR drops 26 points. That's the 7th lowest in the NFL. Those are some serious numbers to look at. Those are things the Bucs should be concerned about.
Israel Gutierrez, a lot of stats there from George Sedano. Some concern on this Tampa team. What do you see?
More than enough stats for the two of us. So I'm just going to focus on the other side of the ball here and say that, look, the Tampa Bay offense, while even though it didn't have Antonio Brown, didn't have Rob Gronkowski, of course, seemed like there didn't really have anything. There didn't have any juice. They didn't really have any long balls. It seemed like Tom Brady was just checking down all the time. And, you get to that point where you think, hey, we can win regardless because of that defense. And then the one drive where you need to stop, 10 full minutes, 19 plays, take the entire fourth quarter. I'm with George here. You got to look at Todd Bowles and say, hey, there's a way you've got to try to recreate the defense that won a Super Bowl last year. We certainly haven't seen it lately. It feels like, though, Tom Brady was kind of anticipating this because that outfit didn't really have I'm a winner written all over it. It just kind of looked like he was sad and just kind of, wanted to walk out of the building like he did after 1 minute and 43 seconds of interview.
Kevin Blackiston, I'll bring you in here. You heard Arians there. The stupidity, he's saying, and it's in the world of Brady. He's directing that at Brady. How'd you hear that?
Wow, challenging the mental acuity of a Hall of Fame GOAT quarterback. I don't know about that. Look, if we just go back a year ago, the Buccaneers ran into a little bump in the road where they lost 2 games in a row. Tom Brady threw double picks in both of those games, and that's what's happened here. Without Gronkowski, without Antonio Brown, as good as the other guys are, that takes a little something away from your offense. But the defense is a problem right now. They gave up 36 points a week ago. They gave up 29 to a not very good offense this week, which was missing people. And then they can't get off the field with their defense on that 19-play drive in the fourth quarter to salt the game away. So I'm going to say that this is a hiccup in their season right now, just like a year ago, but they may want to clean that situation up. And just a side note, Taylor Heineke has now outscored Tom Brady 52-50 in 2 meetings. How does that happen?
Brett Gaisola, good stat.
Yeah, I think Bruce Arians is partially right. It's not the heat on Brady, it's the stupidity. And it's the stupidity with the penalties. And if you go back a couple weeks ago against New Orleans, 11 penalties that they had. When you commit that many penalties, you're undisciplined. And what does that focus on? Poor coaching. So Bruce Arians knows that it goes on him. But when all was said and done, folks, it was a 4-point game with 11 minutes to go, and they allowed Washington to march down the field in 10.5 minutes. That was their opportunity. So you can kill the offense all you want. The defense has to come through. And one thing about last season, they went on the road. They beat Washington. They beat the Saints. They beat the Packers. They didn't roll over those teams by any stretch of the imagination. Because of the way they played in the Super Bowl, I think we all have it in our minds. Oh, man, Tampa Bay, they were incredible. Nobody could stop them. That's not really true.
So you're all drilling down in that Washington drive, which was the second longest drive in the history of their tracking in the last 20-plus years. And it's just incredible. 19 plays, 10-plus minutes. Last word, Israel Gutierrez.
Well, it's interesting because last year after their bye week, the Bucs didn't lose a game. This was their first game after their bye week, and they still look pretty confused. So kind of seemed like they put it together easier last year. Maybe this year might be more of a challenge.
Big numbers in Week 10. We saw a few 40s on the schedule. Nobody was bigger than New England, though. 45-7 over Cleveland. Browns were minus their running game. But that doesn't explain Mac Jones happily hunting 19 for 23, 3 touchdowns for Jones. Here's how Hunter Henry is describing what's going on with New England right now. They're on a 4-game winning streak. He said this to Albert Breer, MMQB.com. Quote, the Patriot way is real, end quote. Frank, are you beginning to believe in this team? Is this Mac Jones magic? Is it Belichick witchcraft? What's happening here?
It's a little bit of a combination of both, and the defense is outstanding as well. They're doing what every team wants to do. Get better every week, and they're doing it with a rookie quarterback who had 7 drives yesterday, 5 touchdowns, 1 field goal, 1 punt. That is pretty efficient. You think about the way that defense played. They also converted 7 of 9 first downs. They made the Cleveland Browns, a playoff team a year ago, look like one of the worst teams in the league. Give Belichick that defense and Mac Jones a lot of credit.
What'd you see yesterday afternoon from New England?
Yeah, you know what? I feel bad about Jones because I don't think we're giving him credit, right? If he was like a 6 or 7 year veteran, if his name was Brady, we'd be going, man, that guy is making money throws. He's not making any mistakes.
Well, that's what I'm asking you. You're saying Mac Jones is not getting enough credit here. This is interesting.
Well, yeah, I think he deserves a lot of credit for how he's grown into that role, and we got to give Belichick credit for seeing the future in this guy right now. But the other question about the team is the defense, and they have answered everything. Aren't they leading the league right now in interceptions, I think, with 14 as a team? I mean, they're taking everything away, and they're beating people up left and right. I mean, so this defense is a great combination to go along with a quarterback who's really
steady. Stone there, aren't they leading the league? That's what I'm asking you, Kevin. You're supposed to give me that, all right? The Bills, after yesterday's game against the Jets, passed New England with 15. Go ahead, Israel Gutierrez.
Well, the Patriots went shopping this offseason, did they not? And Bill Belichick has all the motivation after last year's Tampa Bay win to come out this year and do well. All he needed was a quarterback to give him a chance. And that first game against the Miami Dolphins, where the Patriots lost, you could see, even in that first game, he can stand in the pocket no matter how aggressively the rush is coming and make that quality throw in the last second. He has gotten better at that as the season has gone along. He's gotten better at the intermediate to deep balls. And then, of course, you've got Bill Belichick game planning not only with the running game, but with the defense. And I think it's a perfect situation right here, because if you look at the AFC, like, unless somebody's shaking in their boots about the Titans, it's pretty open right now. And if the Patriots are just improving as the season goes along, by the time the season comes to an end, or the regular season does, they're probably going to be better than a lot of these teams that you're seeing currently
George,
at the top
are
of the
you
standings.
finding yourself wanting to give credit to Mac Jones for this, or Bill Belichick for this?
Mac deserves a little credit, but this is about Bill Belichick, okay? This is about the hooded genius and his redemption, basically. If you look at this particular squad, Tony, they're dominating both lines of scrimmage right now. The offensive line, the reason Mac Jones has looked so good is because in this particular game, he was only pressured 3 times in the game. By the way, Cleveland is the second best defense at pressuring the quarterbacks in the NFL. They've outscored their opponents 150-50 in these last 4 games in their 4 wins because they've been able to control the line of scrimmage. That's how they've been able to do it.
Frank, you said something before we sat down about how franchises have to rebuild, and it quite often turns into something that goes on forever. And about this team, that's not the case.
Yeah, a lot of times organizations, they use that as an excuse. This is why we're going to lose for a couple of years. We're rebuilding. In theory, the Patriots are doing that. When you have a rookie quarterback, you're rebuilding, and right now Bill Belichick is winning with him. That's impressive.
You know, you called him the hoodie, and he always will be the hoodie, George. But yesterday he was the puffy as well. Did you see that puffy coat? Ain't nothing getting in there.
Good.
Move on. One more story here. And I know we had some fun at Woody Page's expense. Our GOAT, Woody Page, saying the league had figured out Patrick Mahomes when he had legitimately 3 bad games in a row, but yesterday 406 yards, 5 touchdowns. Frank, when you take in what Mahomes did last night, did you see what you needed to see from him to think KC's all right?
Yeah, I know who doesn't have him figured out. That's the Raiders. He's 6-1 against them, and he has 15 touchdown passes. He's back to being the player that he was. I'll tell you what, maybe they had a chance to be killed off a little bit last week by the Packers, who didn't have Aaron Rodgers, but this team has life. They're in first place in that division. Good luck trying to knock them out in the playoffs. I don't care where they play. If it's on Kansas City or the road, they will be tough because that guy's a star.
JB, was this something, or, I mean, Vegas is as broken up as any team can be right now. Was it more about the opponent?
Oh, yeah, the Raiders were absolutely horrible, but I got to give Kansas City some credit because they made them horrible. I mean, they won the turnover game, which they've been losing all year long, and their offense was absolutely unstoppable. Also, controlling the football, which you don't think about with Kansas City. They were plus 10 on that side as well. So you got to give them some credit, but they need consistency.
Israel?
Yeah, I don't think it would have mattered who the opponent was. Kansas City was on a mission to sort of recover in this game. And if you look at sort of the way they beat Philadelphia and kind of had the short game going and then opened up the long game, this is kind of where they need to go. They don't really trust the running game necessarily, but you can't just go 40 yards to Tyreek Hill all the time. When you look at those sort of averages by those receivers in this game and you see that, okay, maybe they started going off short. You look at Travis Kelce, he's the one who usually benefits by being open and intermediate in the middle. That seemed to be the exact thing that happened in this game here. And if you want to say that that's the Chiefs' formula offense, then yeah, they might be back.
Tony, can we lend some perspective to Patrick Mahomes slumping? He has the most yards in the NFL and second most touchdowns in the NFL, okay? He's 11-0 on the road, by the way, in his career against the division at this point. And yesterday, with 400 yards and 5 touchdowns, he's now the 4th guy in history to do that in at least 3 games. The other guys are Marino, Montana, and Peyton Manning. So let's
that's why we had fun with Woody. I mean, it's the expression that I notice now. You know, I don't like to say this out loud. I notice now it is a banned phrase. The league has figured out. George, you came so close to saying it about Tom Brady in the first story. Do you realize that? I mean, the league had finally figured out Brady at age 43. Guys are allowed to lose games. They're allowed to have bad weeks, bad two weeks, you know? You have to allow for it. But we'll be back.
Not allowed to have a bad show.
Buy or sell on the other squadouche. This was supposed to be about Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. In the end, not a lot from Rodgers. No touchdowns. Red zone pick. Wilson, 2 INTs, 20 of 40 for the game, said it was not about his finger. It was about the mistakes he made. George, what was this about?
Look, it is about the Packers a little bit. Their defense is fantastic. Look at the teams that they've held over the last couple of weeks and where they've held them. But Russell Wilson was 2 of 15, okay, trying to throw the ball 10 yards or more in that game. 7 overthrows, 6 of 23 to his wide receivers. I think some of that has to do with his finger.
Israel Gutierrez.
You were off by 1. It was 8 overthrows according to ESPN Stats and Info, and that's the most since 2019. Basically, he had his worst game in at least 3 years. And so, to me, on a cold night where he was just coming back, had pins in his hands, like that's something that you got to put on Russell Wilson. It's not like now, granted, you got to give the Green Bay defense credit, but when Green Bay scores 17 points, it's not really exciting. I think this is more about Russell Wilson and his failures.
The biggest story in sports for the past week and a half has been Aaron Rodgers. He was back on the field with a team that when he left, it looked like it could be the best in the NFL. And you know what? When he comes back, even though he didn't do too much, it still looks like it could be the best team in the NFL, especially the way their defense is playing right now, shutting people down. So for me, it was all about the Packers and Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, Kevin's 100% about Aaron Rodgers. He's right about that. And the Packers. But when you look at Russell Wilson, here's a guy that's played about 150 games in his career. His yards per attempt were 4 yards. That's tied for second lowest in his career. I think his finger, I think the weather, and I think that defense, he wasn't himself. Some of those throws, inexcusable.
Buy or sell 2, Cam's back. First 2 touches, 2 touchdowns. Got flagged for the helmet off here. He went up top for that falsetto almost. Carolina 5-5, playoff spot number 7. Israel, could it be that this is Cam's team already and they're a playoff team?
Well, no, it's Christian McCaffrey's team, but Cam might be the quarterback. And I think when you bring that type of energy that they've been talking about all weekend, you bring that type of energy to the locker room and that type of ability to just keep the team together, I think that's definitely helpful in this situation. It's not like they have a better.
Okay. I'm going to read a quote from McCaffrey. The energy that Cam has is unlike anything I've ever seen. I mean, so McCaffrey said it. Blackistone is it Cam's team. He's going to be starting next week. Matt Rule made the announcement already. Monday, the game after. And is this a playoff team?
Well, it is a playoff team because of that defense. We've been talking a lot about defense on this show today. And is it Cam's team? Absolutely, because he's got the personality. He's wearing the big brim hat. I missed that in my post-game interviews, and now that is back. So, yeah, it's his team.
What's your takeaway from his performance yesterday?
You know what? It was a terrific story yesterday. You hope that it turns out to be a great story. It's hard not to root for Cam Newton, but let's remember, he was out of the league. He still has accuracy issues when he's throwing the ball. So I'm going to pump the brakes just a little bit on this.
Sedano.
Cam Newton was basically eating cereal on his couch, according to him, the other day, and he's scoring two touchdowns on his only 2 possessions for the first time since 2012, Tony. He deserves to crow and tell people he's back. The flag was BS, too. He was off the field to play. Let him celebrate a little bit.
Happens every year. When it happens, players don't know that it's happening. Ties are allowed in the NFL. Look at all the players like, what? We didn't get tie? I mean, they're rookies, they're young, but still. Lions still don't know that there are wins in the NFL. This overtime was just special. 2 teams at the peak of their ability to not win football games. Pittsburgh had 3 turnovers. Actually, 2 turnovers in the overtime, 3 in the game. KB, Dan Campbell can celebrate his first career win, but can he celebrate his first career non-loss?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, it's a rarity and it happened, and I'm tired of players getting blamed for not knowing the rule. These guys grew up in a college system which got rid of the tie back in 1996, 1995, so they wouldn't realize.
So you're all right
that
with
this is still a
players not
possibility.
knowing a rule in the sport that they play? Interesting.
It is so
interesting
rare.
strategy. Go ahead, Frank Isola.
It was a 70-minute exercise in futility. It should have ended in a tie. You know what? If you're the worst team in, like, the Premier League, it's good to go on the road and get a tie. You're Dan Campbell and the Lions. You're the worst team in the NFL. There's nothing wrong with a tie. You didn't lose. Not bad.
Sedano, is that how you see it?
Tony, I'm with Frank and KB. Jay Gruden didn't know there were ties in 2016 when he was the head coach of the Washington football team. If a coach doesn't know, I'm going to give players a pass.
That's why he's no longer the coach, all right? And Israel Gutierrez.
It just makes me wonder if anybody watches these shows, because I'm old enough to remember in 2008, my first year on this show, Donovan McNabb didn't know that there was a tie. And I thought to myself at that time, oh, well, if Donovan McNabb says this out loud, then for the rest of time, we will all know that there can be ties in the NFL.
No. All right. That's a Blackistone, Frank.
Finished in a tie.
Yeah, you guys finished in a tie.
Yes,
Unfortunately, in order to break a tie, you need to be
lose.
wearing a tie. Gutierrez is the only one who did that today. Israel and George Sedano, who'd been sitting around his studio just waiting every day. 17, they were over the Falcons and Jets, respectively and disrespectfully, but they were Big George who had the more convincing bounce back.
Tony, it's clearly the Cowboys. The Falcons came in as the 7th seed. They held Matt Ryan to 117 yards, the lowest in a game he started and finished.
Israel?
Well, Tony, it was a leading question. You said the Cowboys had probably the worst loss of the season last week. So, of course, their bounce back is the better bounce back this week because they can lose to anybody. Beating the Falcons by that number, good for them.
You guys are just disrespecting the Jets is what you're doing. You're not even counting Buffalo's win. Is that what this is?
Yes. No win.
Split the point. That was bigger bounce back. This is now bigger miracle. Showdown 2. Kansas, the walk-on fullback, catching the 2-point conversion to beat Texas. Or how about this miracle? South Dakota State was up with the ball, and they try to throw the ball as high as they can to run out the clock, but it's not high enough. So South Dakota gets one more chance, and yes, of course, they're going to Hail Mary to win the game. What was the bigger miracle, Israel?
I've seen walk-ons on bad teams catch touchdowns. I've never seen patty cake for a touchdown by South Dakota. That by far was the bigger miracle right there.
No, South Dakota State are both good. Kansas a doormat, and the walk-on beat almighty Texas. That's huge.
You guys both missed it, though. Bigger miracle I asked for. It's our guy right here. On crutches, But he can walk! He can walk! He won! Winning heals
That is a
everything!
miracle. Wow.
Yes, that is the biggest
Look at that.
miracle. And now, well, let me look
fair.
at the rule book here and around the horn. Yes! Ties are allowed. Let's go! Tie ball game on the scoreboard. Take the face. 15 seconds, George.
Oh, Woody's really going to hate me now. By the way, Manning Cast today, something to watch for. Current players 0-6 when appearing on the Manning Cast after their appearance there. Beware Draymond Green.
All right, that's enough
You
for
know
you.
what? I was unhappy about this, George, but now I'm happy about it. You know what? A tie to share the spotlight with my brother George, to be in the same record books with Pablo Torre and Sarah Spain, and at one time Woodrow, who all had halves or at least
Okay,
three-quarters
you
on
guys
their
just
wins.
argued
This
it
is
was
a
the worst
special
thing in
day. This is
football.
a special day.
You know what it's bad for? It's for people who like order in their standings. You know, now there's a third line.